We focus on history, culture, religion, art, social, and philosophy of Nusantara.
Here, in the presence of Nusantara, we were made to be forgotten about the goodness of ourselves. Because negativity seems to be more interesting for us. Now, I'm Sutoyo Raharto and friends assist you to remind you, to awaken you that we still can find the gems of Nusantara. They are the great sides of Nusantara. Okay, good afternoon, Mariana, a nutritionist from England and living in Bali now.
Yes.
You wrote about imbalance about your body health. What happened at that time actually? And how did you come out with great solution to balance your body health?
So that's actually really interesting because so when I talk about that, what happened was about 6 years ago now. I decided to change the way I was eating. So I had moved to England and I gained a lot of weight being in England. So fast food is very cheap there, and there were like just chocolates and pizzas and everything everywhere. So I ended up gaining a lot of weight. And then I decided to change the way I was eating and become a bit fitter. And at that time I had been taking some medication. I was taking the contraceptive pill for a really long time. But not as a contraceptive. It was to balance my hormones.
Yes,
so
I
the
know.
doctors had told me.
I think that is kind of, I don't know, weapon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know why many people take that pills.
Yeah, so this is the thing. I find that the contraceptive pill came in as a way of helping women that were having problems with their menstruation, not just as a contraceptive. When I'm looking at it like this, it's more of the way the doctors are using it to try and regulate hormones and try and balance out periods and things like that.
So try, right?
Yes, exactly. Okay. And the way it works, it's because it kind of presses pause on your own production of hormones. So because you are now taking something that artificially dictates what your body is doing, for women that, for example, had very irregular periods or no periods at all, that can make it easier because then they feel themselves having a period every single month and it makes them feel a bit better. But from my own experience and most of my clients, what happens is you take it for a shorter or longer period of time, depending on the person, and then you stop, and the problem that you had before is still there. So that's actually what happened to me in this time when I had this imbalance. Was I had taken it for 10 years, and then I stopped, and after I stopped, my periods completely disappeared. In one entire year, I had a bleed 3 times in 1 year, which was crazy. And after that, I started having a lot of acne, a lot of problems. I felt like I was just tired. I had no energy. I was very lethargic. I was feeling like lazy and just moody, and I didn't have motivation or energy to do anything. And then I ended up going to the doctors, and they did blood tests and they did scans, and they found that I had a condition called PCOS. So it's polycystic ovarian syndrome, which a lot of women have, and a lot of women have it without even knowing, because most of the time the doctor just puts the pill in to kind of regulate things, and you go years and years without knowing that you have this problem, which was my case. And then you were asking in terms of what I did to come up with a solution. So with this specific case with PCOS, which is something that I deal with a lot, it's most people think about it as being a hormonal problem, like a reproductive hormone problem, because in the name it talks about the ovaries, and normally you see problems with menstruation, but it's actually not just a reproductive problem, it's an endocrine problem. So a lot of other things are involved. Like if you have problems with your blood sugars and with insulin and with stress, that all impacts on this condition. So the finding the solution wasn't just one thing, it was a lot of things. First of all was making the right changes to my diet. Because also in the beginning I thought that the solution for this was to go low carb and to eat clean, and that is stuff that can help you in the short term, but in the long term it doesn't really work very well. So it was learning to tune into my body, and also to eat correctly for what my body was going through, but also unlearning certain things that I had been I had learned from the world and from society. You know, for example, I think it's very common if women are having painful menstruations, for example, to take some medication or to take something to deal with that. And it was learning that if you are having painful periods, maybe that's your body trying to tell you that something is out of balance, and learning those things and actually learning how to respect your body. So also managing your stress levels and sleeping more and making sure that you're not doing things in your everyday life that are working against you. So it was in short of all the things that I was saying, it was finding everything that was not working for my body for all those years and correcting it from the inside out, really.
So, who enlightened you actually?
Wow. So for me, that's really interesting. Initially, one of my friends, she was very fit and she was very health conscious, and she came to visit me, and she just started telling me some information about like the way she was eating, and she gave me some reading materials. And I am a very curious person. And as you know, my first degree was in forensic science, so I am very into investigation and finding the reasons for things.
I need to do another interview with you about forensic.
So because of that, I'm a really curious person, you know, and I question things a lot. So it wasn't as much as who enlightened me. In the beginning was just I was doing so much reading on it and going to conferences and listening to podcasts. And then it got to a point where I had acquired a lot of knowledge, but it still wasn't enough. So I ended up doing a second degree. And this is why I have two qualifications, because I went back to studying after I finished forensics. And I was like, I really want to learn more about this. And so it was learning about human biochemistry, and then learning how to use nutrition and food and things like specific supplements or herbs for healing specific problems. So it wasn't as much as like one person enlightening me. It has been a lot of studying on top of getting that inspiration from my friend, because she just had that vitality about her. She always had energy and she was always active, and it was that inspiration combined with a lot of learning.
So you mentioned about ancient meal, ancient food, ancient way of life. I'm curious, which country of ancient?
You know, that's a really interesting question, because I use some principles from that type of philosophy, in the sense that I do think our bodies are not supposed to be eating all these processed foods and all these refined foods, but I don't follow any specifics, because I think everything is very unique to the person. Like what my body needs is probably very different from what your body needs. And even if you think about different countries and how people grow, but also the environment that they are exposed to, that would change. Like people in the tropics tend to eat fruits that are much higher in sugar, but you're also a lot more active, whilst people in colder countries tend to eat fattier foods as well. So it's not one type, it's more about what that specific person needs.
So can be English ancient.
Can be.
Okay. What is herbal health nutrition actually?
As in the concept?
Yeah. What you teach actually?
Okay, so for me, the reason why it's called hybrid, it's because, like I was saying in the beginning, I'm a very curious person, and in my process of learning, but also from things that I had lived in the past, I was realizing that there are so many different medicines and natural medicines as well. Like, for example, in China, they have traditional Chinese medicine, and in India, they have Ayurveda, and all these tribes have their very unique healing methodologies and herbs and things like that. But also nowadays there's a lot of science behind natural health. It's not just about picking some random herbs in your garden
Yes.
and using it. There's a lot of science to it, and it's very backed up. There's a lot of studies, even on supplements and things like that, and even on specific foods. There's a lot of studies. So for me, the concept of hybrid was to bring all these things together. It was to bring together the idea that you can have natural health even if it's very science based, but also you can use things that actually work but come from nature. So it was to have this combination, this hybrid between things that are almost opposite, you know, like natural health and science, that are almost opposite, but also things like, for me, the true healing processes are in the combination of things, not in the extremes. So, for example, for me, something that is very important is that your health is not just your physical health, it's also your mental health and the way you feel. And I find that if anything goes too much one direction, you end up pulling away from something else. Like if someone is focusing too much on the diet and what they're eating, they end up in this mode of being restricted or being too worried about the food, and then their mental health takes impact on that.
True,
or if
true.
you are too worried about like meditation or just pacifying your mind, and you end up not caring for what you're doing with your body. So for me, it's all about health is about this hybrid of different methodologies and different healing techniques. And then nutrition is the main thing that I focus on, because I really think that what you put in your body is directly the foundation for everything else. Like, food is so powerful and we don't really think about it that much, but what you eat is literally putting specific information in your body. Like if you're eating foods containing different types of minerals or vitamins, that's giving your cells the ability to create different neurotransmitters or hormones, and that changes the way you feel and the way you behave, but also the way you look. And it's really powerful. So for me, it's nutrition is the foundation, but also health isn't just the one thing, is this hybrid of everything that ultimately fuels your body and your mind.
But it has to be vegetarian, or we can eat meat also?
Not at all on the vegetarian side. I'm
Not at
actually
all.
not a fan of the plant-based and vegetarian
Okay.
and vegan, because I think that it makes it a lot harder to absorb certain nutrients that in modern life, even people that eat meat are deficient in certain nutrients. And if you are only relying on plants to source them, it makes it even harder.
So you have to calculate all of the body weight, the way of life, exercise, these kind of things.
Not really. So I think a lot of us are more intuitive than we think. Like a lot of the time I have people that, for example, they know that this specific food doesn't agree with them. For example, some people tell me, oh, I think I get really bloated when I eat bread, for example, but they still eat it. And and that's something that happens a lot. But intuitively, you have that awareness of, okay, this food isn't really agreeing with my body, but you still end up having it because you almost need someone to tell you, listen to your body, and then you learn to listen. I don't calculate at all things like calories and grams, because again, I've been through that myself. I used to do that for a period of time, and I think that is another thing that just takes away enjoyment from the food. And I think food is such an enjoyable experience. And if you think about it culturally, most cultures like to share their meals and eat together and bring that joy to it. And if you're worried about how many grams of meat or carbohydrates or how many calories I have in this plate, it's putting extra things for you to worry about. And I think people
Yes, it
already
is.
worry about too much. Then in terms of exercise, again, I don't I don't put specifics. So again, this is something that is very important to me, is to have freedom in your approach. And I think it's more important for people to do something that they like than to specifically go to the gym 5 times a week. If you prefer to dance or to climb or to swim, and that's something that you will enjoy and do more often, then that would be the right thing for you.
Okay. How long did you take to get rid of that toxic, actually? Back to
Back
natural.
to health. So for me, it was in 2015 was when I decided to stop the medication and change my diet. And I think the beginning is the hardest part, and it tends to be when most people give up as well. But for me specifically, I think it took me about 2 years to feel really good. I felt good
Wow.
very quickly, but to feel really like my body was completely different. Like I loved the way I looked, and I felt like a completely different person. And also that the marks had disappeared, and that I was feeling good in my head as well. It took me 2 years to feel really, really like a completely different person.
Wow.
But to be honest, I was doing it by myself. I didn't have guidance. Nowadays, if you are having guidance on it, it's much faster. Like with the way I work with my clients, people see a huge difference much, much faster than that. So I think it depends as well on how much support you have, and if you're doing it by yourself, and if what you are doing is the right thing or not. Because in the beginning I was experimenting with so many things, and some of them were great for me, but some of them weren't that good. So it was a bit of a back and forth with that.
So for your clients, how long do they take to get rid of the toxic usually?
Again, on that, it's really important to understand that when you decide to do something about your body, and let's say if you are in your 20s or in your 30s or in your 40s, it depends on where your body is at. If you were really healthy in your childhood and then became a teenager and started drinking and smoking and partying a lot and not sleeping, then you might only have a few years of damage to undo. But if you were already a child that didn't start off that well, and from all those years you had a lot of things going on, or if someone had an acute illness in their 20s or 30s, it depends on where their bodies are at. And some people see a complete transformation in like a month.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, some people is very quick. Again, it depends on what the issues are. In terms of energy levels, it tends to be fairly quick. In terms of mood and concentration, tends to be fairly quick. Then obviously things like hormones tend to take a bit longer, especially from a female hormones point of view. It can take anywhere from 2 to 3 months to see a difference in the cycle. But again, for people that have been taking the pill for 10, 20 years, it might take them 6 months, it might take them 1 year to be completely back to normal. And it also depends on how much support you are giving the body, if you're focusing on all the areas, or if you're just kind of doing it by yourself and focusing on one thing. And so for some people it can be super quick, and for some people it can take a bit longer depending on where their bodies are at.
Are there many people like you having this kind of problem before? I mean, yeah. Yes.
Many people.
Many. Wow.
The thing is, with a lot of it, people don't know what it is that is happening. I think women are not very educated on their own body, on their own menstrual cycle, and understanding the signs of an imbalance starting. So with this specific condition, it's not just, like I was saying, it's not just about the hormonal part going wrong, but for example, women that have this condition tend to have body hair growing where it shouldn't grow for females, like on their chest or on their back, or even the legs having very dark hair and a lot of hair. They tend to have a lot of hair loss. They tend to have problems with fluctuating energy. Some women really struggle with feeling like they eat anything and they gain weight very quickly and they can't lose it. And those can all be signs of this exact condition. Like the testosterone levels can be very high. They can have more tendency to put on muscle faster and things like that. So there's a lot of symptoms, but sometimes, and especially if people are given the pill early on, they don't know that they have a problem. Some women don't know that they have a problem until they stop taking the pill because they want to get pregnant and then struggle. So
Oh,
you
wow,
think
wow.
about that. They might have lived their entire life with this condition without even knowing about it. That's very common as well.
Wow. Wow. Amazing, huh? So,
It's amazing and sad
so,
at the same time.
so what is actually the problem here
With this condition,
with lack of knowledge?
with the women that don't
Yes,
know.
yes, yes.
Well, I think some of it's that medicine is in conventional medicine is very focused on when there's a problem, you take a medication to help with the symptoms. So women don't really learn until you start digging in for information yourself. Another thing is, I think there's a lot of taboo on talking about the period and the reproductive cycle and hormones and everything like that.
Even in England.
Everywhere, I think everywhere
Oh,
in the world,
okay.
it's still a bit of a problem. I think a lot of girls don't hear that from their moms, and then you are trying to learn this information, and some of the times you are learning it from your friends, but your friends also don't know what's going on, and everyone is going through it. When you're a teenager and you're going through your first period, and some girls are a bit like, oh, what the hell is happening? And then it happens at different ages for different people. So I think there's a lack of understanding what's happening inside of your own body for girls from a young age. And then I think even at school, at least when I was at school and I was learning about it, I think when you then start learning about it, it's all very it's all very black and white. It's all very much you have a period and you can get pregnant, and you learn about contraception, you learn about condoms and the pill and all these ways of contraception, but you don't learn about your menstrual cycle. You don't learn about the differences that as a woman you feel in the different weeks of your cycle, and what is normal and what isn't. Like, most people think that it's very normal to have painful periods, and that's not normal at all. I mean, it's normal to have some discomfort, some cramping because your uterus is shedding, but it's not normal to have very intense pains and needing to take painkillers. And most people don't know that. I mean, I didn't know that growing up. I was just used to taking some painkillers if I had problems, and you just keep going about your day. So I think it's just in general. I mean, nowadays it's getting much better. There's a lot of movements bringing awareness to that, being more in touch with your own reproductive cycle and being in touch with your body, and with stuff like this. It's our hormones are so powerful, and it's not just about the period, it's not just about the bleed, but it's also how you feel the rest of the month. It's also about feeling focused. And even as women, we have times of the month where we don't really want to be as social, or you may have times of the month where we feel really beautiful and want to socialize with everyone. And this is now starting to be more general knowledge, instead of it being something that you don't worry about. You just worry that you bleed once a month and that's it.
So you must educate a lot of people.
Yes, and I absolutely love it. I feel like it just gives you so much power to understand what is happening, because then you also have, not only you feel like you are in control and you understand what's happening in your body, but also if something is to go wrong, then you are aware of it.
Wow. You say I help women transform their bodies and feel amazing from the inside out. Is your movement only for women? And does women and men have different way to maintain their health?
Okay, so it's not just for women.
Okay.
But because a lot of the foundations, I work with men as well, because a lot of the foundations are similar in terms of everyone wants to be able to sleep better, to have more energy, to look at the mirror and like their image, to have better libido. Everyone wants to feel good. It's not just women. But I think women have more complex bodies, more complex hormonal systems, and in a way, because I have been through a condition that made me disconnect a bit from being a woman in a way. It just became so clinical, and I didn't even have my menstrual cycle working properly, and I just became so disengaged from it. I now find it so powerful to empower other women, and especially seeing the transformation. And again, not just in hormonal cases, but for example, when it's a case of someone that has been struggling with their body image because they can't lose weight and they don't like the way they look, and seeing someone go through that transformation of learning how to talk to themselves differently. I think also women tend to be very critical on themselves. So changing that internal monologue and changing the way they see their body, and then feeling the way their bodies are changing as well, that's super powerful, and I absolutely love doing that. But I also really enjoy working with men. And again, the foundations of health will be similar to both. It's just then the application will be different. For example, both men and women need to be able to stress less, but the way you go on about managing your stress might be very different from a guy and a girl. Like, women might prefer to be social or go to the spa, and men might prefer to be more into doing hard training and sports and that type of stuff. So it's the application of things might be very different. But again, it's not just depending on the gender, but also on the person.
Wow. So we have to go back to the nature. We have to be able, being mindful about ourselves, self-awareness.
Yes, so much.
Oh, so it's very important to have you to educate many women.
I think nowadays this is becoming much better in the sense that there are people out there putting this education out, not just me, but my colleagues as well, and bringing that awareness that you are in control of your own body, and you don't just need to wait until something goes wrong and then take some medication for it. You are in control, and you can do something to change what you're not happy about.
Yeah, this medication sometimes or many times destroy our health, actually.
Yes, I mean, sometimes it's also very needed. If you've had an accident and you need an operation, you can't do anything with like herbs and magic. You need to go see a doctor if you need emergency care. And for a lot of cases, to make people's lives easier, for example, if someone has severe depression and they're really struggling to do anything with their life, they might need that support. And then if they feel that extra bit better from the medication, then you can manage the rest much better and introduce changes. And then eventually, if they want to come off the medication, it's much easier to then do it. So I think natural medicine and conventional medicine, they both
Should
have
be
a place.
balanced.
Yes, exactly. They should be used together and not as kind of competition against each other.
How is the condition between herbal medicine and conventional medicine in England?
I think nowadays people are being much more open to it.
Okay.
But I think there's still a bit of stigma, even in both communities. So I think in the natural health world, there's a lot of people that just perceive doctors as being, they don't care about the person and they just want to give them medication. And don't get me wrong, some doctors are like that. They have 5 minutes to see the patient, so they literally just prescribe them something and out the next person comes in. But not everyone is like that. I mean, I think doctors, they have put themselves through at least 6 years of medical school. They wouldn't do that if they didn't care for helping people. It's the way I see it. So there's also very good doctors out there that really help. And then I think the true power is on blending these things. If someone is at a stage where they are starting to present with symptoms, but it's still manageable, I think that's when natural health has a lot of power in managing this before it becomes an actual problem. And I think in other cases, you do need to get that medical help. So I think in England, they are still very separate things, but some practices are starting to integrate them more. But I think it is getting progressively better and more connected.
Yeah. In China, they combine actually.
Yes, in
Yeah.
some countries they do, and it's very good to see when they do that.
But I think in Indonesia still separate so far away.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so as well. I think so.
Let me share here. This is in Canggu.
Yes.
True wellness comes from tuning into what makes you feel happy and fulfilled. Learn to say no or yes. Creating time to look after yourself and fulfilling, yeah, fueling up your body to give you the energy to do all those things. But my question is, how do we learn to say no or yes? How can we know which one is no, which one is yes?
Mm, that's a very interesting question. So I think a lot of the times we deep down know it. You deep down know if something is being good or bad for you, and I think it takes work and it takes disconnecting from social conditioning a lot of the time. I think there's a lot of pressure for people to do a lot of work, for example, and always be in that very productive mode 24/7, and that if you're taking time to relax you're being lazy. I think there's a lot of that type of dialogue still happening. So in those cases I think it's learning to say no to people that are not respecting your personal time and your personal boundaries, and learning to say no to yourself when you're the one doing that, when you're the one putting yourself in a situation where you're doing more than you should and that you can. But then I think it's also learning to say yes to opportunities and to things that make you feel good without feeling guilty about it. It's, I think, for people that come from very restrictive based food and diet types of thinking, it's learning to say yes to being able to have a treat without feeling bad about it. It's being able to go out and enjoy a meal that isn't made perfectly according to the books. So in those cases, it's learning to say yes. It's also a lot of the time is learning to say yes to spending money on yourself because it will make you feel good, like buying a new piece of clothes or going out with your friends. If those things make you feel good, it's learning to say yes instead of just being in a very scared and fearful way of thinking. So that is a lot about it is mindset. A lot of it
It's
is, yes.
being balanced to your mind.
Yes, and I think it's not something that comes super naturally to most people, but I think the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. It's like the first time that you say no to someone that you've been wanting to say no for so long, but you felt bad or that you couldn't, and then you do it, and you just have this feeling of power that, oh my God, I did it. And then you start to respect yourself more and more, and you learn to use those yes or no words that are very powerful. If it's something that you feel like, yes, I really want to do it, just ignore the fear and then learn to say yes. And if it's something that you know that just takes away from you, takes energy, takes happiness, learning to say no to that.
So basically, you teach your clients to be more mindful, more aware, more enjoy about life.
Yeah, I teach my clients to be who they really want to be.
Okay, okay. I thought it's about um calculating your nutrition,
So
protein.
I definitely use nutrition as the basis, but it's from a therapeutic point of view. It's I use nutrition as the base to make sure that the person is going to have energy to do things in their days, instead of just wanting to do it but feeling so tired that they just end up sitting on the sofa or scrolling on Instagram and don't do anything. So I definitely use nutrition as the base for that, to make sure that the person is thriving, is feeling good, is thinking clearly, is being able to be the best version of themselves. Starts with fueling yourself properly. But then if you just focus on that and the mind doesn't change, I don't think it's lasting. So what
Yes.
I teach my clients is including all of this. Hence why it's hybrid, because it's not just the food or just the mindset or just the lifestyle, it's all of it combined.
Mariana, some people are so rigid,
Yes.
especially European education. Yeah, they are so strict. A has to be A, B has to be B. Black has to be black and white has to be white. It's different from Asian point of view where we can mix. Okay, between black and white there is a gray.
Yes, it's more flexible, I think.
So, how did you maintain your teaching or your training to meet this kind of people, these rigid people?
I think this is really important, is that people tend to come to me when they feel like they are ready to change. That's really important, because I'm not here to try to convince someone that they need to change. I'm not here to try to tell someone that what they're doing is right or wrong for themselves. But I think sometimes in our lives we get to a point where we know that something isn't working for us anymore and we want to change it, but you can't always do it by yourself, or you don't know how, or you need a bit of guidance. And I think that's when people tend to come to me. It's when they know that something that they're doing isn't working for them and they want to change it. So I don't deal that much with people that are very strict in their ways of thinking. And I think because my approach is very flexible, is very freedom based, what I ultimately want to do is just to empower people so that they make their choices. They are in their power and in their freedom to make choices without that strictness and without that restriction. Because I've been there. I've been that person that was 100% strict with everything, and I just ended up, like, every time I would just end up burnt out and unhappy and hitting a wall and being like, why am I not happy? I'm doing everything right. So I know that those people exist, but I think people that work with me, they are already open to being flexible and to change what's not working or do more of what's working.
Okay. Do you reject clients though?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Sometimes I do. If I find that someone is very, very strict for example, what you were just talking about, like if someone is coming to me and they are having all these issues, but for example, if they are vegan, we're not going to be a good match, because I do really believe that you need to eat plants and animal protein. So in that case, that's a combination that wouldn't work very well. Or if someone wants to be very numbers based, if someone wants to know exactly the calories and the grams and everything, then again, we're not going to be a good match. And if someone just wants to do it for the short term, if someone is like, I want to lose weight for this wedding or for summer or for this photo shoot, and I find that a lot of the times people that are in that type of goal and in that type of thinking don't even care that much about their health. They just want that specific goal. So in those cases, we're not going to be a good match. I work with people that yes, they want to achieve aesthetic goals. They want to feel beautiful in their bodies and in their skin and have nice hair and all of this. But because they are so healthy that their bodies look like that. So I do reject clients if the way they're thinking and the way that I teach is completely miles apart, which doesn't happen all that often. I think people that come to me are already in the right way of thinking. They just need some extra guidance.
Okay, one more. This one. This is what I teach: how to build your health from the ground up so that you reach your body goals while improving the way you feel, think, and how much energy you have to do more things you love. So, some or many people do not know their own body goals. How do we know our own body goals?
I think most of the time people know that something bothers them, even if they don't have a specific goal set. For example, if someone can be like, I want to have clear skin, or I want my hair to stop falling, or I want to lose 10 kilos. That's a specific goal. But sometimes people just know that something bothers them. For example, people are like, oh, I always get to after lunch and I feel tired or I need a coffee or a nap, and that bothers them.
Oh, is it normal though?
No,
No.
not at all. It's
So I need
common.
to.
It's very common, but it's not normal.
So I need to be your client.
It's one of the most common things I see.
Of course, in China, yeah, we were trained to sleep after lunch.
Mm. And it's the same in a lot of Europe. Like in Spain, they have siestas after lunch. In Portugal, everywhere closes for lunch break. So it's the same in a lot of Europe as well. But to be honest, that's one of the easiest things to correct. That mid-afternoon crash is one of the
Oh.
easiest things to correct.
So
For example, that could then become a goal.
okay.
So if you want to have stable energies for the day. So I think it's a lot of it, it's tuning into if there's anything that is bothering you. Or a lot of the times is if you're thinking about the version of yourself that you want to be. For example, if you're someone that week after week, you end up getting annoyed at yourself because you're like, damn, this week again, I wanted to have been more active. I wanted to have gone to the gym. I wanted to have read a book. I wanted to have socialized. Then you don't do those things because other things get in the way. Again, is finding out what's getting in the way. Is it because you are overworking yourself? Is it because your mindset is blocking you from doing these things? Is it because your time management is terrible? So sometimes it's setting your goals based on things that you want to achieve or things that you feel like are bothering you because you are not accepting that you want to do and you want to tune into. Again, when people come to me, they tend to know the specific things that are bothering them, but not always. Not always people have the full awareness of something until we start digging in. And then sometimes it happens that the reason why people are not feeling super happy about their lives is because they don't allow themselves to take time to see their friends, or they don't take time to be in nature, or they're not eating properly, or they want to sleep more, but instead they end up watching TV until really late. So it's, as we dig into what they're doing in their lives, we find out more goals to address as well.
So you have to ask a lot from them.
Yes, but
Yeah.
I think in the way I work with people, it works really nicely because I work for a minimum of 3 months. So in the beginning, we really focus a lot on what people want to achieve and what it means to them to achieve that. But also it's very therapeutic in terms of what I am suggesting that they change or adjust. But then as the weeks go by, there tend to be patterns that happen and that helps us address them.
Wow. So how long have you been training people actually?
So for about 2 years now. And
Years.
before this, I was working in a health store. So before that, I was already in the field of giving advice, and it was already health advice. But one-to-one like this, it's been 2 years.
Oh, okay. Wow. So why Bali?
Why not? Why not Bali? Bali is great. But I think Bali is very nice. It's a small country, but has so much diversity. Like you can go to the north, and it's really beautiful, and you have all these very nice beaches where you can do snorkeling, or you can go to the mountains, and it's cold, and it's a completely different environment. But also you have big shopping centers if you want to go to the shopping center, or if you want to go surfing. There's just so much diversity and so much you can do. And then I really like the culture in Bali, the locals being so relaxed, which is such a different way of life from being in the West. I think people are just very rushed in a lot of the rest of the world. And then I think being in Bali taught me to just be present and appreciate the moment and just enjoy life.
It helps you to being balanced.
Yes. Yes, it does. It does. I think in a way, it can also be hard if you end up relaxing too much. And then you have to force yourself to get back into work mode. It can be hard in that sense, but it took me a while to learn what was the best way for me. But now I think it helps me recharging, and it helps me stay balanced, and it's being very good.
We have to meet in Bali or
Yes.
or in London.
I mean, in London, it's probably going to be very cold, and we're going to need like 5 coats and a scarf.
Thank you, Mariana, for your sharing, for your knowledge, for your
You're very welcome.
enlightenment.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. I will invite you for forensic.
Completely change of topic.
It's different topic. Thank you, Mariana, for your time, for your
You're very
attention.
welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I see you soon in Bali
See you
or
soon.
in London.
Absolutely. See
Okay,
you soon.
bye.
Thank you.